Hello, how's it going, people, benefit sponges and other people? Yeah, bit of a change this time. The fuss of going out online, it's just gonna go up for everyone at the same time, but only benefit sponges will be able to ask questions. And maybe you've only started watching my channel in the past few months, in which case you'll be like, what the flip is this about? Well, it's part of the thing I do where I answer questions of people who fund me on Patreon. Maybe they'll be about video games, maybe they won't be about video games. I don't know, maybe I'll ramble on for about half an hour. Definitely. So if you're not interested in watching that, then just don't. But anyway, let's get into the questions. So, Martin Brennan asks, I know this is a tired old hat made of old beans, but will there be a Bloodborne pants man? Just seeing Chris sitting next to you for long periods of time eating food was a joy. It was a lot of fun doing it, actually. It was a lot of fun sitting around eating pizza with Mr. Bratters. Bloodborne Pants Man is far from being off the cards. It's definitely something that I'd be up for doing. I don't know when we'll do it or how, but I'm up for it. I was kind of up for finishing off Dark Souls 2 Pants Man at some point. It's just difficult to find the time because it's basically just asking Brat to come round to my house for an entire day, which is fine, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Bloodborne Pants Man, definitely like to do it. If I can work out a way that I could have some time, big chunks of time preferably, rather than having Brat come round here every week, I'd definitely be up for doing that, because Bloodborne's really good, and I quite like to try doing it in my pants. Trafalgar asks, he says, it's now been over a year since the whole Patreon thing started. What are your thoughts on how it's going compared to how you thought it would be? That's a good question. And actually, this is sort of followed up by Chris Rebubble Spirit, who says, I mean, besides the complications that it had due to Matt's problems with his girlfriend and how she's doing. Well, she's doing pretty well, thankfully. She's in relatively good health and good spirits at the moment. She's actually gone away for a few days in Dorset, which is nice. Dorset, get some sunshine. She's doing all right. I mean, we don't know what the future will hold. And to be honest, if you look at the sort of numbers there are, it's not terribly good, but we're doing our best to just enjoy life at the moment and hope that we have odds which are unlikely, which is the nice way of saying it. But no, I think it's impossible to really discuss this idea of how I think Patreon has been going compared to how I thought it would be without really thinking about that, because the two have been sort of inextricably linked for quite a long time, because even before I knew that my girlfriend was suffering from a rare form of cancer. She was quite unwell for a period, and she was, working very hard and trying to juggle a job whilst also coming down with this pretty nasty life-affecting illness. So I think that was having an effect on me quite a lot before we actually found out about it. And I look back now to this time last year, and I was just incredibly lonely, and I was spending a lot of my time trying to work and trying to do things, but not actually seeing people very often. And just stressing out about work and stressing out about the Patreon and doing enough work. And I wasn't very happy. I wasn't very happy for a very long time. But I feel a lot better now. I think I didn't really realise that until end of last year, start of this year, where I kind of started looking at my life over the past month, 2 months, and I just hadn't clocked it. I hadn't clocked that I was just very lonely and unhappy. And it may have been reflected in these update videos that I did. It may have been, me constantly worrying about things, maybe me trying to overanalyze things and thinking about things too much. I think I was just really unhappy. But I feel like I'm in a better place now. I feel like I'm in a better spot, and I'm more hopeful for the future of it. How's it panned out so far? It's been over a year. I think it's been not quite what I expected. I think I've struggled with things a bit more than I was expecting to. I think I've struggled with working on my own. And even though I mostly work on my own, I think not having a group of people around you, not having a kind of office of colleagues to kind of bounce off and chat to, or just turn around and bitch to sometimes, has been a bit detrimental to just my enjoyment of my work and my ability to work consistently. Also, sometimes just ideas, it's more fun making things with other people. Sometimes that bouncing off is when you get the really, really good ideas. But it's not been bad either. I've been proud of some of the work I've done. And I think really for me I wasn't expecting it to be such a challenge to work on my own. That's actually been very difficult. And I feel like I'm getting good at it now, actually. But I wasn't expecting that to be as tough as it has been. And in the past few months, I've been taking that pretty seriously in terms of trying to make proper plans, trying to be more efficient in terms of how I do things, of having like, this is going to be a day of scripting, this is going to be a day of filming, then I'm going to chip away at editing, and I'm just editing in a different way rather than having a panic of being like, I've got to make something for the channel, I've been trying to just like have different projects on the go and chip away at things. And at the moment now, I'm currently working on 3 different videos at the moment, 2 of which have been filmed and are just in the process of being edited, and the other one which is sort of in the process of being scripted before I go into it. So I'm just trying to keep. I'm trying not to rush things, but by working on multiple things at once, hopefully it means that there will be a reasonably steady flow of things coming out, but also a better level of quality, because I think that that's the main thing. I really want to just ramp up the quality in the next few months. I'm going to do my best to make really, really good stuff. I'm amazed it's doing as well as it is, though, really. I mean, I kind of feel like incredibly lucky that it's consistently stayed at that level. A lot of people, when I started doing it, sort of said, well, how what's it called? What's the flipping words? A lot of people thought it might not be sustainable for this sort of thing, but it's only been a year, but so far it seems to be doing pretty well. Obviously, lots of people stop funding me, lots of people leave, lots of people sometimes look at something I've said and they think, actually, I don't like you anymore. Fair enough, that's just the way the world works. But I tend to be attracting an equal number of new people, or people who've been following my work for a long time, who decide and go, actually, I've loved your stuff for a while, I'll give you a couple of quid a month. I think, I don't want to be complacent with it, but also I've kind of had to accept that I really want to try and step it up. I'm really keen to do the best I can, because I think that the problem is that whilst I've realised recently that whilst I can, happily just get by not having to concentrate on big numbers and not having to concentrate on popular series stuff and really pushing people to subscribe or, support me or whatever. I don't like to do that stuff. But at the same time, I do kind of miss the thrill of, as crass as it is, of just trying to get lots of people to watch my videos and trying to get lots of people to like them. And I kind of feel like I'm going to be not shameless, but a bit less shamed about that sort of thing, and just being like, what, I'm going to try and make the best quality stuff I can, and might try and get as many people following my stuff and following my work as I possibly can. Mainly because I've realised that actually I've got to the point now where I've enjoyed working on my own, but I would actually quite like to work as part of a team now. I think I'd be quite up for that, like working in an environment with other people, collaborating, creating things together, and having that kind of stability that allows you to create ongoing content in a way which doesn't feel forced or or tiring. But the options of ways to do that are quite slim at the moment. There aren't really many outlets at the moment who would hire, and also I'm not sure I want to go back to that system. I'd be quite finicky about it. If I want to work with other people and actually be creating stuff with other people, I want to be doing it very much on my terms, and I wouldn't really want to change the nature of what I do very much. And I think that would be quite difficult to find an environment where I could do that. And also, a lot of it at the moment is remote. A lot of these teams, a lot of the way that people work together, it's all just like done over email and stuff and done over MSN chat or whatever. No, I would actually really like to have that kind of physical base, that physical team of people. I don't know. I'm basically just sort of thought, well, one of the ways that you could make that happen would be to try and earn more money on your Patreon. If I do actually end up getting to a point where I haven't actually thought of a number in my head, but if I could get to a point where I was actually earning more money, a lot more money, I'd actually be able to start hiring other people and getting people, like giving them freelance money to just, even if it was just a case of, hey, come round to my flat, come round to my house, like for a day a week, and we'll do something. I don't know. That would be pretty cool. So I'm open to ideas on that. I think it would be a lot easier if I wasn't living in London, to be honest. It's something I've realised that the difficulty is I'd love to have a proper studio space that I could share with other people and collaborate there, but it's just not really feasible. It's not really, it would be a pretty big expense in London. And I've looked into it a little bit, but it's difficult to justify because I need a decent amount of space. And I don't know. It's one of those things. We'll have to see. I don't know what my life circumstances are going to be like over the next year and a half. It may well be actually that I'm, not wanting to be dark about it, but it may well be that I am in a situation where I'm suddenly a bit free and loose and don't really have any commitments to anything. And if that does end up being the case, I don't really know what the plan will be in terms of continuing what I'm doing. I don't know. I can't really judge how that will feel if that does happen. Sorry, it's a bit serious, but it's impossible really to kind of, because I'm self-employed and because I my work is a lot of what I do. They're pretty tied up, and but yeah. I've stumbled off from the topic here, but yeah, basically, has it been what I thought it was going to be? Not really, but it's been good. It's been good, and it's been a really good learning curve in terms of learning how I work on my own and what I need to do to make sure that I work well on my own, because I don't always. And it's not that I'm lazy, it's not that I wander off and do other things, and sometimes I just get into a habit of actually just getting stressed about working and not actually getting much done. I think it's a pretty common thing, anxiety sort of thing. But I think I take that stuff a lot more seriously these days, and I do actually tackle it pretty head on. So I'll go and meditate, or I'll go and have a climb, or go and have a run, or just go and do some exercise, go and eat something, go and have a pot of rhubarb tea. I'm changing quite a lot at the moment, and I'm quite a different person to who I was about 6 months ago, but I think it's all right. I think it's a good change. Anyway, but Ross Kennedy says, I know you've mentioned reading Margaret Atwood's work for, but I was wondering if you did read novels, and if so, what are you currently reading, or what's your favourite book? I'm not reading as much as I'd like to at the moment, i.e. I'm not reading anything. But favourite book, actually this ties into a question from Goose Bremer, I'm probably spelling your name wrong, Mr. Goose Bremer. What thing, book, game, film, etc. will you never tire of recommending to people? Oh, that's tricky. I mean, I could do one of those. I always love recommending, in terms of games, I always try and recommend Portal 2, just because I think it's a universally great thing that even if people don't play games much, they'll get something out of it. I think it's very cool. Book, I always recommend to people consider Fleabus or Oryx and Crake, and that's because they're two of my favourite books, and The Blind Assassin, actually. But that's because I don't read much. I haven't read much. I should read more. But I don't have time. I'm learning to do all these other things, or making things. I wish I had more time. I still want to play bloody Hyrule Warriors. My brother bought me Hyrule Warriors for my birthday. I just want to play that for a bit, but I haven't had a chance. God. George Conway asks if you had to have a fight with either a golden eagle or a giant sentient mongoose made out of chocolate mousse, a sentient mongoose made out of chocolate mousse, which would you... I'd choose to fight a giant mongoose made out of chocolate mousse, of course, because A, it's made out of chocolate mousse, which means it's not going to be able to really hurt me very much. And if even it does, I'll die relatively happy, or chocolatey at least. Who doesn't want to die covered in chocolate? Anyway, Llewellyn Nail Pudding Griffiths asks, obviously we'll change a lot over our lives, but what part of your life would you say you'd change the most? That's a good question. I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think it was probably over the past 4 years. I look back to the sort of person I was when I started OXM. Not that I've changed dramatically. I just think I used to be a lot more flippant about what I said in relation to being hurtful to... Not being hurtful on purpose, but just being flippant towards saying things that were a bit hurtful to groups of people that I wasn't really affiliated with or a part of, or didn't really know many people in. And I think actually this ties into a lot of stuff, which at the moment, being a social justice warrior, that's what I do. But I think that's true for a lot of people who work in media, because not only do you get to travel around a lot and meet lots of people, but you get to connect with, people, the community, and you get emails from people who follow your work, and you get emails from people who love your stuff, and you, whether you like it or not, you become connected with a wider community of people. And sometimes you say or do things that will disappoint them. And I think sometimes it's easy to kind of shrug that off and just be like, well, you shouldn't be offended by it. But I think after you've been exposed to that for a while, you start to realize that actually you can sit in a pub with your friends and say things and everyone will laugh and no one will have a problem with it because you're all from the similar backgrounds, or no one there can be offended by what you just said. But when you start saying these things out to a wider audience, you realize actually you are having a negative, harmful effect on people. And I think it's not a case of being like, you should never do that. And I think there are exceptions when it's like, well, no, I'm sorry, but I stand by what I said, or I stand by the joke I made because of the structure of it, and I do think it's fine. And there are those situations still exist, but I do think I've changed a lot in relation to being flippant about stuff. And I kind of think that these days, like if I'm thinking about using a word, and I should say I'm still not perfect at this. I mess this up a lot. But if I'm thinking about making a joke or thinking about using certain language, and I realise that that's the sort of joke or the sort of language that might actually cause some people to be upset, and then I don't not do it. I just sort of reevaluate it a bit and go, well, is it worth doing? And if the answer is no, if there's no real value to choosing to do that rather than something else, I just don't. And I think that's a really substantial change that's sort of affected the way I kind of deal with the world and the way I deal with lots of things. And that led on, that realization that you might cause harm or hurt to people, then led on to this realization of how much there was of a disparity in terms of like how much some people just get dicked on by the world and reality. And that was like, whoa, it's kind of a rabbit hole. And that led on for a while. So I think I look back at a lot of stuff and a lot of things I used to say and sort of nature of who I was about 4 years ago. I wasn't a bad person by any means, but I think I was a little more ignorant than I thought I was. That's probably the biggest change. But I don't know, I'll probably find myself looking back on this current part of my life in a couple of years and realise that I'm probably going to come out the other end of wherever I am now quite a different person. I've already changed quite a lot in terms of my outlook on life and in terms of my habits and in terms of what I do and how I approach things. But we'll see. But that does lead on to a gaming-based question, which is in relation to games, etc. Can you think of any good characters which change over the period of the game? That's a good question. It's really tough. Games don't do that very well. This idea of a gradual transition, because it's hard to do that. Because often the way it works with us changing as people is we don't notice it until much after. We just change very, very slowly. It's like icebergs, just very gently moving around. And you don't see how dramatic the change is until you're quite a long way past it. I think possibly the game which tried to handle that in a really cool way was the first Fallout game, with the idea of like, you're sent out into the world to go and find something, and then when you come back to your tribe, you come back with this thing to save your people. They decide that actually, you've been changed by the outside world. You're not the same person anymore, and you will not fit into this society. And this idea that you become an outcast because you're never going to fit in here. It's going to be trouble. It's best if you just leave because now you've become an outsider. And I think that's, I don't know whether or not, because I never actually played the first Fallout a lot, but I don't know whether or not people actually felt like when playing that was a natural thing that they felt. But I think that's a really cool way of trying to capture that idea of just people shifting over time, being shifted by the reality around them. Angie says, I enjoyed your recent article on Vice, semi-recent article on Vice. Are you planning to do more writing? Yeah, sort of. I think I need to sort that out, actually. I'm supposed to be doing some regular stuff for Vice. But I feel at the moment I'm just trying to get back into the swing of actually doing kind of my video stuff, my Patreon stuff, because I know it hasn't been terrible. I know it hasn't been like mega erratic, but I'm just a bit wary of taking on more external work until I feel like I'm at a level with what I'm doing and what I've been funded to do kindly for over a year now, at a level which I feel I'm really comfortable with. So I'm not against the idea, but I think it will be pretty minimal. Maybe something once a month if I can get into the swing of that. But at the moment, I really just want to focus on the video stuff, really, because I think that's a good thing to focus on. And I don't want to take the piss, because it does feel like if I was just not putting much up on my YouTube channel at all and doing all this other work, it would be like, you're kind of taking the piss here. So it's a difficult one to balance. And it's mainly me that cares about that, but that's fine. It's me. Ben Naylor asks, for me, humour and games seem like a natural pairing, yet it's rare to see them together in both games themselves and games media. While I appreciate it's a difficult thing to get right, why does the industry take itself so seriously? I don't know if the industry does take itself that seriously. I think often a lot of the industry takes itself that seriously because fans want it to take itself seriously. Like, people don't want stupid articles, they want serious facts. Does this game run at 186 frames per second. Like, to a lot of people, games are serious, and, you know, we shouldn't joke about them, we shouldn't take the piss, because, like, this is a serious issue, and, you know, those guys are idiots, but I get it, you know, it's just the way it is. And I don't think games are too serious. I think it's just often the humour in them is a bit weak. It's either like, a tongue-in-cheek reference, or a pop culture reference, or satire, ooh. I mean, I like satire a lot, but what games call satire is fucking rubbish most of the time. It's like just taking the piss out of really obvious stuff, aping obvious things. I don't know. I think I'd like to see more funny games, but yeah, it's just, I mean, even stuff like Borderlands, I quite like that, Borderlands games, but the humour in those games can be so hit and miss. It's just very internet humour. I don't know, I mean, that kind of works, but anyway, there was actually a really, really good talk at GDC by Zoe Quinn about humour in games. And she was talking about, she was making an FMV game about humour, and she made some really good points about how much humour has in common with horror, and this idea of like suspense and build up and then surprise, and using that kind of like the trickery of being like, oh, you think something's in the closet and then it comes out from behind the door. You know, that's kind of this, it's the same structure of how you tell a joke, of like, you know, building up and then the surprise, the twist. And that was really smart. And she talked about how there were some games, you know, stuff like Jazz Punk, which I've played a bit of, and it's quite funny. I didn't find it as funny as I thought I was going to find it, but it's got its moments. And obviously stuff like the Stanley Parable, which are kind of designed purely to be funny. I think the problem is that a lot of people are just not very good at being funny. So yeah. Rob Rosh Skilling asked 2 questions. Naughty, Rob. Naughty. See me. But I'm going to answer one of them because that's the way it works. What do you make of the XCOM board game? I like it. Quinn's reviewed it for Shut Up and Sit Down, but he pretty much echoed our sentiments collectively. We kind of all felt pretty much the same about it, in a way that it doesn't really reflect. It's not like a reflection of XCOM the video game. But it manages to convey that sense of panic, that sense of like, it's going on, they're in trouble. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's different. It's not like, it doesn't remind me of the video game that much, but it conjures up the similar sense of panic. I really like being a scientist. I don't know how much replay value it's got. I've played it about 3 times. And I'd probably play it a couple more times, but I think after that I'd probably be done with it. It's kind of fun, but once you understand it, it's kind of not quite finessed enough to have a real long-term value. But to be honest, it's got beautiful pieces, it's really exciting, and it is a lot of fun to play. And I think that if you like XCOM and you can get a bunch of buddies together for an afternoon to play it, it's a real blast, you know. I think it depends what you want out of a board game in terms of how many times you're expecting to be able to play it before you get bored. I find usually if I can play a game about 3 or 4 times and have a really good time with it, that's usually enough, because it's like, sure, that you know, 3 or 4 times, you're talking about maybe 8 hours of fun out of it for 30 quid, which doesn't seem like good value, but I guess the thing about board games is it's an entire evening of entertainment, like, so that's for like 4 people. So it does kind of add up, and you think about all the money you're saving by not being in the pub, etc. So, I don't know, swings and roundabouts. Oz asks, he says, I know it's a bit of a tender topic to bluntly just talk about these days, which is perhaps why we should talk about it more, in brackets. He's saying that, not me. But have you ever thought about doing more videos on the sometimes thought-provoking, sometimes dangerous politics that are displayed in different games? From Bioshock's Randian dystopia to the change in what Call of Duty's political angle has been over multiple games, although there's perhaps the most 2 blunt ones. I think it's an interesting topic and I'd love your insight and viewpoints on. Interestingly, I am actually currently working on something that's similar to that. It's not really, but it has crossover. I'm currently working on a video about implicit politics in games and about how people often talk about wanting politics to be out of games, but actually the thing is they're talking about explicit politics. They're talking about people explicitly making political points in games. People don't want that. Okay, fine. But then actually implicit politics, you can't get rid of them. So it's like, what's the point in trying to get rid of explicit ones if you can't get rid of implicit ones, because they both have the same impact? I know some people may just be sitting here going, yeah, I know, it's the most obvious thing in the world. But a lot of people maybe haven't thought about this enough. So it's kind of, I'm making a kind of fairly big video which talks about this stuff in a bit more detail, and it's a bit more kind of like laymansy. It's not like condescending or anything, but I guess it is more like potentially a bit educationally. I don't know. People might like it. It should be pretty decent when it's done, but that talks about the Call of Duty stuff, particularly the new campaigns and the nature of those. And I think I get what you mean. I think it's more there is a problem with that, but I don't think it's more that the games have a problem with preaching dangerous political ideas. I think actually it's not really a problem, but it's just something that's a bit of a failing, is the fact that games are a bit too quick to take political ideas or take political eras and use them as window dressing, and then not actually really appropriately give any due service to the reality of that stuff. And I mean, games have always done that, like World War II shooters. It's like, they just take the buddies and the heroes and the killing the Nazis, and they fail to ever really make a good job of actually pointing out the fact that, World War I and World War II were like horrors. They were just horrible, horrible things. Whereas I think, obviously, with BioShock, we've ended up with a lot of people kind of coming out. I don't know. I think BioShock and the sort of Ayn Rand stuff has a sort of like inspired a generation of people to think that maybe that sort of thing is cool, and it's like, no, it's not. It's not cool. Like, it's not cool. And I guess the same as like Call of Duty. It has this sort of apolitical, like, it doesn't really say anything, but tries to raise points and it doesn't make any points. I think if anything, the problem is that games want to kind of dip into these really interesting, tricky subjects, but then they don't really want to get involved with them. And I think that's a bit, I think it just does them a disservice. I mean, I think it was true with BioShock Infinite. It had all this stuff about race, which it then just like completely dropped the ball with, and it actually ended up being like worse. It's like if you're gonna do that stuff, then you should actually make a proper point with it. You shouldn't just use it because it's like whoa, shocking stuff, oh, interesting stuff. So I think that's the problem. I'm not sure if I'll actually make a full video about that sort of stuff, because I don't know. I think especially if you start saying, sometimes politics within games can be dangerous. It's like, I think that's true, but then at the same time, like, it's the right of people making these things to make whatever they want. I think my problem is when they try and use political topics, but they also demand that they don't want to make any political points. I think that's when things are actually get politically dangerous, when it's like, oh, we want to make a game about this, but we don't really want to make any points about it. We don't want to make any strong points. It's like, well, what are you doing then? I don't know. To me, that just feels like a cop-out, which could potentially be a bit culturally damaging, but I don't know. Who knows? Anyway. Two people, Matthew Arnott and Simon James, both asked if I had any experience with the Retron 5, which is, I think it's this mad thing. I looked it up, it's like a mad retro games console thing that you can plug all these different carts into and you can do all this mad stuff. I haven't got one, and also I haven't got any of my old cartridges. I gave my Mega Drive to another family when I was a kid because my dad wouldn't let us have an N64 and a Mega Drive, so I had to give them all away. So I don't really have anything. If you've got loads of legal stuff, then it's probably a really, really good bit of gear, but I don't. So, and also I've got a GameCube and a Dreamcast in a box in the cellar, and I never get them out. So it would seem a bit dumb to try and get more retro console stuff out because I'm never going to bloody use it. And Steve Streeting wants to know about some good co-op games for couples. I'm just looking at the time on this. I'm running out of time. I know this is a bit now. I'm trying to get it under half an hour so I don't take the piss for these things and get silly. Steve Streeting wants to know good co-op games because he doesn't like doing the competitive stuff. I would recommend, in no particular order, Chariots is great. Crypt of the Necrodancer is also great. Quite frustrating, but you're not being pitted against each other, so it's not too bad. Magica, again, very frustrating, very silly, but a lot of fun. Portal 2, obviously. Orcs Must Die 2, not amazing, but pretty fun. Diablo 3 used to be crap. Now it's really, really quite good from what I hear. Path of Exile, again, it's like Diablo 3, but it's free and it's very good. And Monaco, not played it, but I hear it's really good. Also, Oz pointed out in this below that he hears Tomb Raider and the Guardian of Light is fantastic for couples. It is. I played it with a friend of mine. We're not a couple, but hey, if I was a lady, I'd probably tap that. And Kirill Nikitin says, which of last year's games do you most regret not playing? Easy, Dragon Age Inquisition. I really want to play it, but good God, it's big and I don't really have time. And Chris Wallace says, great news to see these videos coming back. To celebrate, I just cut my video game and Patreon money in half. Does this make you happy? Does it? Does it make you happy, you monster? Yes, it does make me happy. It makes me very happy indeed. So, yeah. that's it. That's it for this video. I will do another video next month. If you'd like to ask me a question next month, then you can do so by going and becoming a benefit sponger. And then you can ask a question next month, where hopefully I won't be as tired or all of those things. Anyway, love you very much, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye!